salvage that ship, and it would actually stop sending out our product. They do say if we don't send out our product within 6 months, it would cause a world recession worse than one we had in the 20s and 30s. It will take 24 to 30 hours to load each of these ships. Once a ship is loaded, they can only send them out on an incoming tide because they are restricted by the depth of the harbour. And quite a lot of people say, well, why don't they dredge the harbour deeper? I'm sure they would if they could, but unfortunately, BHP has built a tunnel between Nelson Point and Finucane Island. That was built so if Finucane Island ran out of iron ore, they could send it through from here. The seabed sits at 20 metres below sea level. The tunnel sits at 21 metres, so they can't dig it any deeper. I bet they're cursing themselves now. So this tunnel is 1.1 kilometre long. There used to be a portion of the tunnel here that we could see what was inside. It has a conveyor belt and a walkway. They do say it takes about 15 minutes to walk through. I also have it under good authority. It leaks. I'd be running. Holes have a tendency to get bigger, but they do pump out the water. So there are 19 shipping berths in this harbour, so they can load 19 ships at a time. BHP has 8, 4 for Nelson Point and 4 for Finucane Island. Fortescue Minerals has 5. Gina Reinhardt has 2. Atlas Iron has 1, which is really a Pilbara Ports one, and that's in between their 2 berths over at Finucane Island. And Pilbara Ports has another 3 on this side at the very beginning of the channel by the tug pens. So there's 19 berths in this harbour. So apart from iron ore, they will send out salt, lithium, manganese, copper. They'll bring in fuel, chemicals, mining equipment, general freight. And we are the largest bulk export harbour in the world. So you can see the different coloured line on that ship. That is called the Plimsoll line. And these ships can, if the harbour was deeper, actually be loaded to right up to the Plimsoll line. Some of them still can, but some of them could actually hold more. So the most I've seen that they've loaded is 265,000 tonnes. They can, on some of these bulk carriers, hold up to 300,000 tonnes of iron ore. It's just the depth of the harbour that restricts them. Pilbara Ports has created a software system called a DUC system, which stands for Dynamic Underkeel Clearance. Quite often when they send out a ship, there may only be 6 to 12 inches between the keel and the seabed. Not too bad on a day-to-day, like today when you don't have a big swell, but when the swell comes in, that's fine. But when it drops out, they could actually bounce along the bottom, and that's not a good thing. So they've got a series of sensors in the seabed, and they can accurately tell the height of the tide and the sea swell. They've done it so they can maximise sending out as much product as possible. In doing this, they've created an extra $200 million a year in revenue. The majority of iron ore goes through to China. The rest will go through to Taiwan, Korea, India, Japan, Indonesia, Australia, a couple of the little European ports as well. China stockpiles a lot of these in the ocean. It normally takes 14 days turnaround from the time they leave China and Japan, etc., all the other shipping other steel mills through to Port Hedland and back. But China has created a very quick way of offloading their ore. Normally you just drop in buckets by crane, pull it out, and it will take 14 days. But some of the big steel mills in China, they have created a vacuum system, so they actually suck it out. This is a lot quicker, so their turnaround is about 10 days. So this is their other wharf, and they've got 2 new ship loaders here. These ship loaders are about 3 years old. They're only worth about $48 million each. Their boom actually moves on an in-out basis rather than a rotational basis. The ship loaders can also move 14,000 tonnes an hour as well. The BHP have decided that they'd like to trial these without an operator. They do say it's going to take up to 2 years to perfect, so nobody will lose their jobs for 2 years. They're going to use the same sort of software they use for driverless cars. And then once it is in place, then they will just retrain them somewhere else for the site. So to be an operator, it's not just loading the ship. You actually have to see taking the rising and falling of the tide. Got to watch for the sea swell. You've got to watch for the wind, etc. So it's not just sitting there saying, okay, I'll put so many tons in this one and go to the next one. You've got to keep moving your boom up and down so it doesn't hit the ship. And Colombia's got their white stash of powder. It's directly in front of us is ours. This isn't worth as much as Colombia's. This is Rio Tinto or Dampier salt. It's only worth $21 to $26 a tonne. You would have come past their salt ponds as you came into town. They will then truck their salt through to this facility here. They belly dump it through the base of their trailers. There's one over there, that cube truck there. Goes through the bottom of those trailers. Goes onto the conveyor belt, up onto that stockpile. Their salt is what they call solar salt. It is all done on evaporation. Their very first intake pond is about 26 kilometres north of Port Hedland. They'll let the water come in. They will then close it off. They let that water evaporate till it gets to a certain salinity. Then they will let it gravity feed through to another lot of ponds, and then they'll fill up that pond again. They keep doing that till it gets to those front ponds, which are called harvesting or crystallizing ponds. From start to finish, it's 12 to 18 months. At the moment, they're actually harvesting the very front pond. So their ship can only take up to 75,000 tonnes of salt, and their ship loader can only move 3,500 tonnes an hour. So this is the other side of the northern stockpiles. And along this road here is a series of water cannons and dust monitoring stations. When they deem the dust levels too high, these water cannons will automatically come on. It has helped reduce the dust levels in the town, but just up a bit further where all the conveyor belting is, they used to have a primary crusher. That was decommissioned in 2009. Once it was decommissioned, normally once they're decommissioned all their buildings, they like to blow things up, but they couldn't do that on this occasion because there was a big electrical substation underneath. They did say they were going to pull it apart bolt by bolt, but they never did. So last year they eventually did a series of cuts and pushed it sideways. Within 2 months it had disappeared and gone out onto a ship to be recycled. Someone's probably driving around town in it right now. We get our water from 3 different places. We get it from the De Grey River, the Yule River, and there is a large water aquifer underneath the town. And BHP does use fresh water, but do try to recycle as much water as possible. Gina Reinhardt and Fortescue Mineral, they actually use desalinated water. And unfortunately BHP gets the blame for the dust in the town, and you can say yes, for all the built-in dust in the town it probably was BHP, but now that they've got rid of the crusher, everyone forgets that there is FMG and Gina Reinhardt and Atlas Iron, so we do get a lot of dust from them as well. But we also get some very big dust storms in town. They come off the Western Desert. They can be quite spectacular as they roll in, but not quite so spectacular when you're out and you're not at home and you know you've got a washing line full of washing. And a lot of people are under the misconception that now that the mining boom is over, they're not sending out as much iron ore as they did before. Well, it's really only the construction boom that went bust. They did have plans for BHP on the other side of Finucane Island. They were going to send out a couple of arms right out to 4 kilometres out to sea. It was going to hold 8 ships, 4 as lay-by and 4 for loading. But once the boom went bust, they decided they will shelve that. They've put those plans away in the safe. They say they'll probably never come out, but never say never. They are actually pushing out more product than they ever did before. From this port here already this year, they've sent well over 500 million tonnes of iron ore. BHP have sent out through to China and Japan. They've actually sent out to each of them over 1 billion tonnes of iron ore, and then they say that would equate to one loaded train at 83,000 kilometres long. When we did have our mining boom, accommodation was at a premium. If you wanted to buy a house, even a 1-bedroom house was about $800,000, and the most expensive was about $2.5 million. And to rent, it was anything from $800 a week up to $2,500 a week rent. So people from overseas, over east, were buying houses thinking they were going to make a quick buck. Unfortunately, once the boom went bust, housing went down the gurgler again, and they were left high and dry, and they've been handing houses back left, right and centre to the banks. These tanks here to the left, these are all got diesel, chemicals, aviation fuel, and they all get pumped. All the product gets pumped from the tankers from the Port Authority berths through to these tanks here. Then they'll be trucked down through to the various different mines, etc. Directly in front of us you can see 2 towers. The one on the left is the Port Authority Tower, which is in use today. The one on the right is going to be their new one. It still won't be operational till May next year, and that's not so much the construction, it'll be putting in all their IT infrastructure. The one on the left was built out of concrete building blocks. Apparently it now has concrete cancer, but they built it like that so it would sway in a cyclone and not fall over. Sway it does. When we have a cyclone, they will actually evacuate the port and the anchorages, and they will send the ships out to sea. They go out about 200 kilometres and skirt the cyclone. So nobody is left in town sort of at work, but they used to have one person manning that tower until we had a very big cyclone, and the poor bugger was extremely seasick, so they don't man it anymore. I don't know why they need to if there's nobody sitting at any of the wharves or anything why they would need to be there. So now we're back at the Visitor Centre. I'd like to thank you for coming on our tour on behalf of BHP and the Visitor Centre. We hope you have a great stay in Port Hedland and you have safe travels to your next destination. If you booked on the town tour, yes, it is definitely going ahead, and that will be at 1:30. Thanks very much.
Thank you.